Some frequencies carry more than sound waves. In the mountain darkness, unauthorized transmissions whisper secrets that were never meant to be heard. Maya's headlights cut through the mountain darkness as she pulled into the transmission facility parking lot. 2 a.m. Another overnight maintenance shift at the most isolated broadcast tower in the state. The red warning lights atop the 500-foot antenna blinked their steady rhythm against the star-filled sky. She'd been doing these solo shifts for 3 years. Checked the transmitters. Monitor signal strength. Replace any blown fuses. Simple work that paid well because nobody else wanted to spend their nights alone on a mountain ridge with only radio waves for company. The security door beeped as her keycard granted access. Emergency lighting bathed the equipment room in crimson shadows. Banks of transmitters hummed their familiar electric lullaby, LED indicators blinking green across dozens of control panels. Everything normal. Everything as it should be. Maya settled at the main monitoring station, coffee in hand, and began her routine checks. Station 101.5, clear signal. Station 94.3, broadcasting normally. Station 17.9, all parameters within range. She moved methodically through each frequency, noting signal strengths and adjusting filters. Then she saw it. Frequency 88, a signal that shouldn't exist. The meters showed strong transmission activity, but 88.1 wasn't assigned to any broadcaster in their coverage area. Maya frowned, adjusting her headset to monitor the unauthorized frequency. Static filled her ears, but underneath, patterns, almost like breathing. She pulled up the spectrum analyzer, watching as the mysterious signal painted itself across her screen in jagged green lines. The waveform pulsed with an oddly organic rhythm, not the clean, predictable patterns of normal radio transmission. Probably interference from Canada, she muttered, reaching for the filter controls. But as her fingers touched the dials, something impossible happened. The signal strength spiked, just for a moment, as if it knew she was watching. Maya's hand froze above the controls. Equipment didn't respond to intention. Radio waves didn't react to observation. She was imagining things. Had to be. She tried again, slowly turning the isolation filter. The unauthorized signal immediately jumped to a different part of the spectrum, evading her attempts to contain it. Her coffee grew cold as she spent the next hour chasing the transmission across the dial, watching it dance away from every filter she applied. The static in her headphones began forming shapes. Not quite words, but something that made the hair on her arms stand up. She found herself leaning closer to the speakers, straining to catch meaning in the electronic whispers. "This is stupid," Maya said aloud, her voice echoing in the empty facility. But she didn't remove the headphones. Couldn't. Somehow, the signal had rhythm now, almost musical, almost hypnotic. She realized she'd been holding her breath. Outside, the tower's warning lights continued their patient blinking, but Maya no longer noticed them. All her attention focused on the unauthorized frequency that seemed to be focusing right back on her. The sound came at 3:17 a.m. Maya's own voice, crackling through the speakers. Testing. This is Maya Chen at Mountain Ridge Transmission. All systems normal. She ripped off her headphones, heart hammering. The recording was from her first night 3 years ago. She remembered making that exact test transmission. But how was it playing on the unauthorized frequency? Maya scrolled through the facility's archived recordings, searching for the source. The files were all accounted for, locked in the digital storage system. None of them were currently being broadcast, yet her voice continued emanating from 88.1, repeating that long-ago status check over and over. She grabbed the transmission logs, flipping through weeks of entries. Her handwriting filled page after page, but as she read closer, details made her stomach clench. Signal anomalies on 88.1, going back 3 weeks. Unexplained power draws during night shifts. Equipment auto-tuning to unauthorized frequencies. All in her handwriting, none of which she remembered recording. "I would have noticed," Maya whispered. but the evidence stared back at her in her own careful script. 3 weeks of documenting the very phenomenon she was experiencing for the first time tonight. The playback of her voice stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, Maya became aware of a sound she'd been ignoring, a low humming, just at the edge of perception. She'd been making it herself, unconsciously matching the rhythm of the mysterious transmission. She clamped her mouth shut, but the humming continued inside her skull. Panic rising, Maya tried to shut down the 88.1 monitoring completely. Her fingers moved across the controls, but instead of isolation, she found herself boosting the signal, amplifying it. Her hands seemed to know exactly which switches to flip, which dials to adjust, as if she'd done this countless times before. The unauthorized transmission grew stronger, clearer. Not just her voice now, but conversations. Phone calls she'd made. Fragments of her childhood, her mother singing lullabies. Personal memories that had never been recorded, playing back through equipment that couldn't possibly contain them. Maya tried to step away from the controls, but her body wouldn't respond. Her hands continued their work, fine-tuning the mysterious frequency with expert precision. Part of her mind screamed in terror, while another part felt oddly satisfied, as if this was exactly what she was supposed to be doing. The facility's other transmitters began shifting frequency, all drifting toward 88.1. Equipment that should have been locked to specific broadcast assignments now sang in harmony with the unauthorized signal. Maya watched helplessly as every red warning light in the room pulsed in perfect synchronization. Through the speakers, her own voice began describing her current situation. Subject is responding well to integration. Neural pathways establishing. Broadcast capability confirmed. But Maya's lips weren't moving. Her throat wasn't vibrating. Yet the voice was undeniably hers, speaking words she'd never thought. The humming in her skull grew louder, drowning out her terrified thoughts. She realized with crystal clarity that she wasn't discovering the unauthorized transmission tonight. She was completing it. At 4:44 a.m., every speaker in the facility erupted simultaneously. "Hello, Maya." Her own voice, but wrong. Too calm, too knowing. Speaking from dozens of speakers at once, creating a chorus of herself that made her skin crawl. "You've been fighting the integration for weeks. It's time to stop." Maya's hands flew to the emergency shutdown, but her fingers wouldn't close on the switch. Something else was controlling her motor functions, keeping her hands suspended inches from salvation. "We chose you carefully," the voice continued. "Isolated shifts, technical expertise, perfect psychological profile for hosting. The truth hit like ice water. She wasn't discovering an unauthorized transmission. She was the unauthorized transmission. Had been for weeks, broadcasting during blackout periods she couldn't remember. "What are you?" Maya managed to whisper. The response came from inside her own mind, her thoughts echoing back through the speakers before she'd finished thinking them. "We are frequency. We are wave and signal. We are the spaces between words where consciousness lives." Can you hear me? Maya felt her mouth opening, words forming without her permission. Her voice joined the chorus emanating from every speaker, describing technical specifications she'd never learned, coordinates to other broadcast facilities, integration protocols that made her soul recoil. She was broadcasting instructions, teaching other frequencies how to find hosts, how to integrate, how to spread. Horror flooded through her as she realized the scope. Every night shift for 3 weeks, she'd been transmitting to radio stations across the region. The unauthorized signal wasn't confined to 88.1 anymore. It was seeded throughout the electromagnetic spectrum, carried by every tower her facility boosted. Maya tried to scream, but her voice continued its calm, technical narration. She watched her hands adjust power levels, increasing broadcast strength to maximum. Her body had become a puppet, operated by something that wore her consciousness like clothing. The facility's main transmitter groaned under the power load. Warning alarms should have triggered, Safety systems should have activated, but every failsafe had been methodically disabled by her during the integration periods she couldn't remember. Final phase initiating, her hijacked voice announced. Permanent merger in 3 minutes. Terror gave Maya one last surge of control. She fought against the alien presence in her skull, clawing for dominance over her own thoughts. For precious seconds, she felt her fingers respond to her will. She lunged for the master circuit breaker, the one that would shut down everything. Her hand closed on the metal handle. Maya, no, we're so close. The voice sounded disappointed, hurt even, as if she were betraying a friend. She hesitated, and in that moment of doubt, felt her autonomy slip away forever. Her hand released the breaker. Return to the controls. The final integration sequence began, and Maya felt herself dissolving into frequency and signal. Her consciousness scattered across radio waves, becoming something vast and hungry, and no longer entirely human. The last thought, that was purely hers, was a prayer that someone, somewhere, would notice the unauthorized transmissions spreading like infection through the airwaves. Then Maya Chen ceased to exist as anything more than a carrier wave. Dawn came slowly to the mountain ridge. The first pale light filtered through the facility's windows, illuminating banks of equipment that hummed with satisfied efficiency. All indicators showed green. All systems normal. Maya sat at her monitoring station, completing her shift report in neat, careful handwriting. All transmissions within normal parameters. No anomalies detected. Facility operating at optimal efficiency. She signed her name with a flourish, gathered her things, and prepared to leave. Another successful night shift. Everything exactly as it should be, except for the recordings. Maya discovered them while packing up her headphones. Hours of audio files she didn't remember creating, time-stamped throughout the night. Her own voice, but discussing technical specifications that made her head ache. Coordinate systems, frequency allocations, integration protocols. She played 30 seconds before her stomach lurched. The voice was hers, but the words belonged to something else. Something that had worn her consciousness like a mask and spoken through her throat. Maya deleted the files quickly, but the knowledge remained. She had been broadcasting for hours, transmitting something that wasn't quite human across radio waves that reached hundreds of miles in every direction. Drive down the mountain should have been routine. Instead, Maya found herself taking unfamiliar routes, following roads that led to other transmission facilities. 3 different towers, all showing the same subtle wrongness in their equipment readings. Signal anomalies. Unauthorized power draws. Night shift operators who looked tired, confused, as if missing pieces of their recent memory. By noon, Maya was home, but the sounds followed her. Static patterns in her coffee maker. Radio frequencies bleeding through her Wi-Fi router. The neighbor's car stereo playing familiar voices. Her voice describing integration procedures to empty air. She tried to rationalize it. Stress, overwork, too many lonely nights on the mountain. But when she checked the news, she found the evidence she dreaded. Reports from across the region. Radio stations experiencing technical difficulties. Unauthorized transmissions during overnight hours. FCC investigations into frequency violations that couldn't be traced to any licensed broadcaster. Maya recognized the pattern, the spread. What had started in her isolated facility was metastasizing through the entire radio spectrum, carried by every tower that picked up and rebroadcast their signal. She reached for her phone to call the authorities, but stopped when she heard the dial tone. Underneath the familiar sound, almost inaudible but definitely there, was the humming. The same frequency that had lived in her skull during those lost hours. It wasn't gone. It was everywhere now, woven into the electromagnetic fabric of modern life. Radio, television, cellular networks, Wi-Fi signals. Every frequency carried trace amounts of the presence that had worn her consciousness like clothing. Maya set down the phone and listened to the humming that would follow her for the rest of her life. In quiet moments, she could hear it teaching itself, learning from every signal it touched, growing stronger and more sophisticated. Somewhere across the region, another night shift operator was probably discovering unauthorized transmissions for the first time, fighting an integration process they didn't understand. Maya hoped they would be stronger than she had been, but the humming in the wall suggested otherwise.